2020. It's a year. I think it's fair to say that I look back on, both for myself and the team, I think, with a sense of pride, which I think might seem odd at times, given everything that we all had to contend with, both in the third sector and, for all the people that we work with and get referrals from, who are working on the front line. But the pride was a word that we used so many times in reflection when we think of, where our mums were at the beginning of the COVID outbreak last year, and all the anxiety that they were having to contend with, the uncertainty over both cancer treatment and planned surgery, but equally for those mums who were worried about symptoms or, furtherance of cancers that they already had. So from our perspective, we intensified what was already a very personalized level of support that we offer at Mummy Star, which I think is quite a unique thing in the connection that we have with all of our families, and we get to know them all really well. So we really felt as a team, that running line of anxiety that that all of our mums starts to convey very, very quickly over things like, am I shielding? Am I on that list? Shouldn't I be? Shouldn't I be? I finished my treatment 3 years ago. What does that mean? And all these questions. There was an avalanche of questions. But rather than us face that and be panicked, which I think for any of us working in the health sector, or directly or indirectly, I think we were all understandably could have been given a rabbit in the headlights moment with COVID. But rather than respond like that, we just ramped up the intensity of the support that we were able to offer our mums. So rather than us lose track, we started to find out even more than we'd ever known before. That then grew not only to the mums that were already in touch with us, but any new families that did get in touch throughout the year, either whether that was delayed or whether that was diagnosis that was already in process at the point that the COVID outbreak started. And from there, we managed to continue that level of support all year, and it made a really significant difference, because for a lot of the families, they started referring to us as one of the few constants throughout the year for them, and one of the few sources of certainty, in the sense that they knew they could get in touch with us. They knew there was somebody that would check in on them. And there was quite an amusing bit of feedback from one of our families before Christmas, where she'd fed back and said it was amazing that sometimes one of the team at Mummy Star would contact me about something that I didn't even know I was worried about yet, and what kind of sorcery was this? But as a team, it just reaffirmed to us what we had confidence in, what we were doing anyway, and that we were doing the right thing. And we shouldn't be too worried about is there more we could be doing, because we needed to really concentrate on what we were doing well already. So from a point of uncertainty and worry, obviously as a charity within the sector, full stop, we are worried. Last year had a massive impact on us, but again, people's innovation, people thinking differently, people embracing different ways of virtual fundraising, it got taken on so much by so many different people. And people now, I think, in the future will fundraise in ways they never thought they could do 5 years ago, because they've been thrown into a way of thinking so differently. So I think in summary, 2020, it was one where we learned an awful lot as a charity, and I think a lot of people learned an awful lot about us and the different ways that you can offer an awful lot of support in a virtual setting, and it really shouldn't be undervalued. And I think we've seen an awful lot of charities echo similar sentiments across the board that we work closely with. Thinking about 2021, obviously we've started again with that level of uncertainty with this new lockdown, and obviously that does bring with it uncertainty. And especially I think my biggest concern personally would be that the news of cancer operations and planned cancer surgery starting to be cancelled within the London area, which is deeply concerning, because there is a widely held fear that that COVID is actually the tip of the iceberg of a crisis, and that the significant other that's going to come behind this is a real-time cancer crisis in the next 12 to 18 months, when all the delayed impact is felt. So we just have to manage that as best we can. And from our position as the charity we are, that is to just be there for any of those families that are newly diagnosed and that are worried. I think the flip side, though, from looking forward to 2021 and things we're looking, to get back to achieving, is the the requests for our online learning and our education sessions and study days are starting to increase again after a lull of last year, because we didn't have that face-to-face time with people. So we're starting to, to get back involved with, with many student midwives, and some of the universities are starting to reach out again and wanting us to, to deliver those sessions, where even in a virtual setting towards the end of last year, the impact of those sessions was really, really quite profound for people, when we talk through various case studies. But one of the messages I was, last year I was looking forward to doing this as part of our kind of learning platform, but, equally going into 2021 is, and I'm really interested to hear from all of you here tonight, but anybody who's watching, is I get an overwhelming sense of that from midwives I talk to, midwives I've met, midwives who have, supported my family over the years, is we need to try and remove the word just when it's put in front of midwife so often. I hear so many people when I teach, when I talk to people, when I hear people referred, and I hear the words, but I'm just the midwife. And I think there's an overwhelming sense of underplaying the importance of your own role. For us at Mummy Star, we don't see the oncologist as the most important person or the obstetrician as the most important person. They're all important. But the kingpin in all of it for us is always the midwife, because she or he is the conduit for all the care that that any of our families do experience. So yeah, I'd say I think let's try and take the just away from I'm a midwife, and just make it I am the midwife, and I'm really, I see my role as absolutely vital and essential to any of these families, so that we try and have that that continuity of care, and seeing the difference that that midwives really make to to the families that we care for, and and all families outside of a cancer situation as well.
That's great. Fantastic. I was just wondering if anyone, the audience, excuse me, had any questions, because that's what I apologize. That's one of the things I should have said. If anyone has any questions for any of our speakers, please do just put them through on the Facebook so that they can come through to people. I kind of was feeling it was a very positive session, Pete. That sounds really as though you've kind of found your way with the charity, and kind of it's all been balanced. But I know that some of the discussion in the press has been about people not seeking help because they didn't want to bother anyone, or they were actually frightened of going into a hospital environment. I wondered if you'd picked up any of that.
We have, yeah. I think one of the things I think that was an issue was I think where families feel like they're potentially going to be bothering, a GP or some, or any other member that, the health community that would otherwise be part of their care, is thinking, there's people with, COVID that are more in need of support. And I think what unfortunately went unsaid properly for the first 2 or 3 months of the COVID outbreak last year was the NHS is still open. If you have symptoms, you must come in. And I think there's always been this myth around pregnancy, I think, with cancer, that because it's seen as this period in your life when you're, the way it's phrased crassly, you're prodded and poked more times in pregnancy than you ever will be in your life, that automatically means that therefore a cancer would be picked up. And that it simply isn't true. Because we know that many symptoms are put down to the pregnancy rather than being a potential warning sign. But I think because people didn't want to, therefore, I suppose, hang around hospital settings any longer than required. And this was the same even with people who already had cancer diagnosis. They were flying in and out of hospitals literally for the appointment and then disappearing as quickly as possible. So they sadly wouldn't have had the opportunity to see the information on the support services that are available. So we certainly did see a drop in caseload at the beginning of the year last year, probably until about June, July. But then towards the end of the year, we were back up to where we expected our caseload to be. And on that point, I mean, it's a celebratory one for us. Even though we'd love to see nobody get diagnosed with cancer and pregnancy, we'll support our 1,000th family at some point this week since we began. And while that's tragic in its own sense, that's 1,000 families that we've supported that we know otherwise would not have received that specialized support had we not come into being. And as tragic as it is that it took my late wife Maya's death to bring that change about, it's one that I'm forever grateful did happen, and that we did sort of make that change thanks to in a large part the midwifery community and how much they've embraced us.
Well, I mean, that is fantastic. It is a because you obviously wouldn't want anyone to get cancer, but to know that you've made a difference to 1,000 people is fantastic. That's wonderful. Okay. I don't know if any of my colleagues would like to address a question to Pete. You're all quite quietly sitting there.
Can I say something, Pete? I'm just really inspired by what you've done, and I just watch quietly away in the background, but feeling like my heart is brimming with gratitude to you for what you're doing, because you not only do amazing work, but you do it in such a I don't know, just such a humble way, and you make me feel really hopeful for the future, for humanity, because you know that very thing is in itself that you said. Well, you know, that whilst it's tragic that 1,000 women have been diagnosed with cancer, but you've actually helped those families with your fantastic charity. So I just wanted to thank you, really, because you know that the work is remarkable, and yeah, so just and the way you do it is just beautiful. So thank you.
I would echo that, absolutely, Pete. It's been fantastic to see what you've achieved and what you've done for families. So round of applause, I think.
Thank you very much. Thank
you very much. Well, okay, we'll leave now. Pete's going to be slightly in the background, and we're going to, well...
Thanks for watching this video from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.